Hello and welcome to the network. Today we're going to go through that rather large slide deck we went through the other day in class just to emphasize some of the points and give you a point of reference. Alright, as we know, we've been working on layer 3, the network layer. We've been working on these switches. Layer 1 looks like this. We have Ethernet 1 plugged into Ethernet 1, Ethernet 2 into Ethernet 2, Ethernet 3 into Ethernet 3, and Ethernet 4 into Ethernet 4. I call my switches my switch 10 and my switch 11. Those numbers are based on the last octet being .10 or .11. What we're going to configure in this video is on switch 10, we're going to configure a VRF purple. And on switch 10, we're also going to create a VRF gold. As I explained in class, VRF stands for Virtual Route Forwarder. Basically creating a virtual route table and segmenting them such that they pretty much don't know about each other. Nothing about each other. And then you have to put interfaces into those virtual routers in order to create connected networks that can be routed. This should all come back to you. Got it in class. On switch 11, I'm going to create a VRF blue. Ultimately, we're going to end up with something that looks like this, where we're going to have VRF purple that will have a loopback 1000 with this IP address on it. It'll have an Ethernet 1 with this IP address and network on it. VRF blue, which will exist on switch 11, is going to have Ethernet 1 and this IP address. It's also going to have VLAN 10, this IP address, and it's going to have Ethernets 2 through 4 in a port channel. Here on VRF Gold, you can see that VRF Gold will have Ethernet 2 through 4 in a port channel, and it will also have VLAN 10, and it'll be on the same network. Loopback 1 will exist on VRF Gold. The ultimate goal of this entire configuration will be creating the ability to ping from loopback 1000 all the way up here down to loopback 1 here on the gold VRF. That's the entire point of this exercise. So to do that, we're going to have to build the infrastructure, and then we're going to have to create rules, routes on all of these VRFs to actually make the routing work properly. So this loopback here on switch 10 should ping this loopback here, which is on switch 10 as well. Right? Which can be kind of confusing because it's on the same device, so why can't it hit it? Well, it won't be able to without passing through VRF blue on switch 11. This is another way, this is another just visual depiction of what it is you're building. You're taking switch 10, creating VRF purple and VRF gold on it. But to get from VRF purple to VRF gold, you actually have to go through VRF blue on switch 11. This loopback will be able to ping this loopback down here, and vice versa. This is just showing you that where I use the less than or greater than sign, that's just standard way to indicate variables quite often in network documentation that you see moving forward throughout your career if you involved in network. Not sure if other venues IT same methodology or not. The first thing we're going to do, create the VRFs. To do that, you have to log into your switches. And I'm going to, here on this slide, all I'm doing is showing you what VRFs exist. Let's go to the switches. And here we're going to actually type this show VRF command. Both our switches. You can see I'm logged in already. I'm going to type show VRF on switch 10, which exists up there at the top. And you'll see right now there's a management VRF and a default VRF. Now in these pictures, all you see is default. That's fine. I recently created the management VRF. I told you I was going to do that. Hopefully you remember that from class. The management VRF is where the actual management interface is, and the reason I created that was because before, the management interface actually existed in the default VRF, because that's the only VRF that was there. So in order to segment out the management interface, which is what you use to log into your switch, I had to actually change the VRF, and you're just not going to mess with that VRF. Don't mess with that VRF, don't mess with that interface. We're good to go. Now if I do a show VRF on switch 11, you'll see the exact thing. As you see, the management interface indicates on the management VRF. Both switches. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create the VRFs, purple and gold. Enough to do. We go into configure mode, type in VRF instance purple. This is on switch 10, right? Only on switch 10 that we will have purple. Okay. Purple. We're also going to, as you see, do this IP routing command. We need that IP routing command because if we don't do it, we'll actually not be able to route packets through the VRF. So that's there as well. Actually, now that I typed that in, if I do a show VRF, I actually will go through that slide. Perfect, right? Management, you see gold, you see perfect. Case matters, by the way. If I typed that in lowercase, it would have created it. So in fact, I'm just going to do that. We don't want to do that in our when we go do our labs. We don't want to do that, but I'm gonna show you how we can actually do this. VRF instance and you can actually do some lowercase and some uppercase. So if I now do a show VRF, look at that. I've got this really one. I don't want that. I'm going to say no VRF, and I got to spell it exactly like it. Oop, VRF instance. Purple. Boom. Gone. Show VRF. Boom. It's so now we're going to also create VRF blue on switch 11. I forgot to do that, so let's do that. VRF instance blue. Done. Now the next thing we're going to do, create the VLAN. Here we look at the existing VLANs, we just type show VLAN. Here, show VLAN. Oh, I actually have, that's right, I actually have a VLAN on this one already. I'm going to delete that VLAN because I'm on it. So literally, I'll just type no VLAN 3104. Add that on there from previous configuration. So show VLAN on. Show VLAN. Notice, no command. How that works. So now create VLAN 10 and 15 on both switches. So I show you a picture here where you can do it. You can do it a couple different ways. You just type VLAN 10, 15. There you go. Just created it. Or you can just type VLAN 10, hit enter, and type VLAN 15. Boom, done. Go. Now if I type show VLAN, they are. Show VLAN. Boom. Are. The next step is we're going to create the port channel. Okay, so now we're going to create the port channels. So what the heck is a port channel? We talked about this in class, so you should know what it is at this time. So on your switch, if you do the show spanning tree blocked ports command, right? We have MST blocking Ethernet 2, 3, and 4. On mine, it's going to be on switch 10. On yours, it could be switch 10, it could be switch 11. Don't forget, since we're not messing with priorities on spanning tree, it's going to use the lower MAC address. All right, so we're going to go, a port channel, right, is when you take multiple interfaces and you make them look like a single interface. You're basically ether channeling, they call it, the multiple interfaces together, so they look like one interface. It's just going to look like one interface right here. All three of these interfaces look like one to the switch. It does some mathematical algorithms to determine which interface it's going to send the flows down, but effectively it's going to look like a single interface, and it's going to impact spanning tree. So that's important to understand. So if we look at the existing interfaces on all of our boxes, we just do a show int status or a show int statu, right? You can clearly see that all these interfaces are in VLAN 1. Management interface is the only routed interface. It's the only routed interface is management 1. So we're going to create a port channel 24 on both switches using Ethernet 2, 3, and 4. Now I show you there's different ways to do this. I'm just going to, look at the slides, and you'll see there's different ways to do it. I'm just going to do one of the methods, and that's just by saying interface Ethernet 2 through 4. And on this one, I'm going to say interface Ethernet 2 through 4. And actually, just for the heck of it, I'm going to say 1 through 4 because I'm going to show you the mistake and how you can fix it, right? I just did 1 through 4 on switch 10 or switch 11. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to type channel group mode. And don't forget, I've told you 1,000 times that you don't need to type in the whole word. You can actually type part of the word, hit the tab key, and it'll actually fill it in for you. It's just a feature of the operating system. And you can just type enough letters to make the command make sense, as long as it's a unique set of letters. So now I've created the channel group, and I think I even show you down here, if you make a mistake, I suggested to you that for your lab, you do that show run command, copy and paste it out. You should do that. Why? Because you'll see what your switch is starting out as, and then when you're done, you can do a show run again and look at what it became, and then you can compare the two. But anyways, what you can also do is show run interface Ethernet 1 as an example. If I do it on my 10 switch, it doesn't have any configuration on it, so it just has a default configuration. If I do it on my 11 switch, where I actually made a mistake, it now says channel group 24 mode on for Ethernet 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into interface Ethernet 1, and I'm going to say no channel 24. Done. I don't even think I have to type in that many words on the no. I think I can just say no channel group, and it'll take it off. Now if we look at the interfaces as they're configured now with the show interface status, boom, show interface status, you can see, oops, I gotta type it correctly. I do type rather fast at times, so miss some letters. Check it out, right here in port channel 24, and look at this, there's a port channel 24 right here, and look at that, that's in VLAN 1. Why? Well, because VLAN 1 is the default VLAN that every interface is put in. So now if I type show run interface PO24, that show run command, you can see right there, it's got no configuration. So therefore, it has a default configuration of being in VLAN 1. So now if we look at show spanning tree blocked ports, look at that, just one interface blocked on switch 10. Why? Because it saw that now the loop that was on every one of these interfaces, there were a ton of loops. Well, now there's only one loop, and it goes from here through this one interface, Ethernet 1, and through port channel 24, which is a singular interface. Even though it is three interfaces, they're bound together in an ether channel to look like one interface named PO24, port channel 24. So now we're going to turn this port channel into a VLAN trunk. All right, here we're going to turn it into a VLAN trunk. So a VLAN trunk, as we've talked about before, is a .1Q trunk, which means that the VLAN will be tagged on the interface as traffic leaves the one switch entering the other switch. Now to do that, we've got to go into the interface. So, oops, I'll get rid of those capitals. Interface PO24, and we just type switch port mode trunk and hit enter. Now we go into this one, interface PO24. Switch port mode trunk. Boom. Done. Now we're going to check every interface again. Show int statu on both devices. Show int statu. And as you can see, this now says trunk, whereas before it actually said that it was in VLAN 1. You can see it right there. It's now a trunk. When it puts port channel 24 into a trunk, puts all of those interfaces that are part of that port channel into that trunk. Makes sense, right? So now what we're going to do, this is just talking about that again, you can actually do a command called show interface PO24 trunk, and it'll actually show you the configuration. It'll say, oh yeah, this is in a mode trunk. PO24 is in mode trunk. It's trunking. Yep, it actually gives you a native VLAN. Native VLAN just means if for some reason there's not a tag on the actual packets coming out of this interface, it's in VLAN 1. That's all that means. So these are the VLANs active on there. Once you say trunk, it's going to have every VLAN on there. Every VLAN that you have created on the switch will go on that trunk. It says it right here, VLANs allowed. All of them are allowed. So what's interesting about that is you can actually configure which VLANs you really want on the trunk if you really don't want them all on the trunk. So that's actually a possibility as well. So this is showing you a picture of what's actually happening right now. We have VLAN 1, 10, and 15 on that trunk, and we have VLAN 1 on Ethernet 1 still. It's just VLAN 1 on Ethernet 1. Shows it right there. Right? So this is just showing you what it would have looked like. Oops, let me go back to that. It's just showing you what it would have looked like prior to us putting it into a trunk. It would have said it was an access mode VLAN. Access mode, it's in access mode port channel because we didn't put it into a trunk. So it's an access port at that point. Access ports have a single VLAN on them. Okay, this is important to understand for your lab. Access ports have a single VLAN on them. You would put the VLAN on the actual interface itself rather than a trunk. So it's not trunking, just one VLAN. If we only wanted one, here's just an example of how we could do that. And this is what we're going to do, right? Right now it's a trunk, has every single VLAN on it. Every single VLAN we created are on that, around that. So we want to change that. We only want VLAN 10 on it. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it an access port. So we're going to say no switch port mode trunk. We're going to take that off entirely on this interface. I was already in the interface on switch 10 there. And now I'm going to say switch port access VLAN 10. And here I'm going to say no switch port mode trunk. And I'm going to say switch port access VLAN 10. Right? And now, if we do show int PO24 trunk, boom, it says it's an access mode and it only has VLAN 10 on it. Perfect. Now with the trunk, and I'll show you this actually right now. It's not something that I have in the slides, but I'm going to show it to you right now, and I should make a slide on it. Where you can actually have the trunk, like I said, have just one VLAN on it. So let's make it back to a trunk. Switch port mode trunk. Switch port mode trunk. Okay, so now it's back to being a trunk. That is, oh, show run interface PO24. This will be funny. So look, it actually says switch port access VLAN 10. That's extraneous garbage. Let's get rid of that. We don't want that on there. It actually kept that command on there. So we're going to say no switch access VLAN 10. Boom. No extraneous junk on the interface. Now it just has, if I type show run interface PO24, boom, good to go. Switch port mode trunk. But again, show int PO24 trunk, we're going to see it's got every VLAN on it. What you do, there's a command called switch port trunk, and I'm putting a question mark after these commands. Allowed VLAN add, or actually I don't even need to say add because right now it doesn't have any on it. I'm just going to put 10 on there. Switch port trunk allowed VLAN 10. Switch port trunk allowed VLAN 10. Now, watch this. Show int PO24. Oops, trunk. There we go. Look at that. VLANs allowed 10. What? So whereas before, if you looked at this, VLANs allowed all. Now, it's only allowing VLAN 10. That's how you lock a trunk down to a single VLAN. You can add other VLANs to it if you want to, but that's how you lock it down to specific VLANs. So now, actually, let's see what happens if we do show int statu here. Look at that. Still says it's a trunk. Why? Because it has the capability of putting multiple VLANs on it. So now let's go back to the slides and do what the slides said. So I'm going to say again, no switch port mode trunk. No switch port mode trunk. And we're going to do a show run interface PO24. So there's that switch port trunk allowed command. So we're going to say no switch port trunk allowed VLAN. No switch port trunk allowed VLAN. And now when I type in show run interface PO24, it's back to defaults. Let's just make this an access port. Switch port access VLAN 10 to get back on track with these slides. And when we do a show int statu, looks just like the slides show up here, right? VLAN 10. Boom. Done. So now we're going to look at what we've built so far. We built this. Ethernet 1 on VRF purple, Ethernet 1 on VRF purple, VLAN 10, Ethernet 2 through 4 is on port channel 24 between VRF blue and VRF gold, but really they're not between it yet. That's why I colored them in black, because they're not in a VRF yet. We actually have to put them in a VRF for them to actually function as though they really are in a VRF. So now we're going to put Ethernet 1 on switch.10 into VRF purple. To do that, all we need to do is go interface Ethernet 1. We got to say no switch port, because we're actually going to make this a routed port. This is a routed port we are creating. Whenever you connect two interfaces together and you don't want to put a VLAN on it, you just want to put a network on it so that they can route to each other, you just make a routed port, which actually to do that on a switch, you have to say no switch port. Now, another way to do this is by using VLANs and using SVIs, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. So you can still do it without it being a routed port. You can route over SVIs, but it's considered an access port still, or a trunk, depending on what you're using. So we're saying interface Ethernet 1, no switch port, and now we're going to say VRF purple, because we want it to be in VRF purple. And now we're going to put an IP address on it. So the IP address we're going to put on it is as per the diagram, as per our specifications, 192.168.0.0/31. Boom. Done. Now I showed you here there can be mistakes. If you don't do it in the correct order, you're going to start getting some weird errors, like if you put it in a VRF before you say no switch port. That's why you need to do that. So be aware that if you see these, keep your eyes open for these errors when you're configuring your switches, and try and understand what they mean. Try and understand what they mean. I'm showing you some examples so that you have some ideas, so that I don't have to say to you, hey, go check the slides, right? Check the slides. Be aware. So now, show int status. And if we look at this, Ethernet 1 is a routed port, and it actually is going to have an IP address on it. So we can now type something called show IP int brief. And we actually see, oh, I have loopbacks on this box. Whoops, I'm going to delete those. Forgot to delete them. They were from a previous configuration. So what you'll see, probably, is just Ethernet 1 with an IP address on it, and the management interface with an IP address on it. Now, I'm going to delete these other interfaces. And these are actually, I think, if I remember correctly, these are probably from when I did the assignment that I gave you. These were loopbacks that I needed to create. There we go. It's probably going to be the same on switch 11 when we go check that as well. So now on switch 11, right, we're going to, on switch 10, okay, now we're going to create loopback 1000, okay? That's that other purple interface that we had, right? So we're going to create interface loopback 1000. I should probably go to the slide first. Let's go there. So here we go, interface loopback 1000, right? We got to put it in a VRF. Again, that's the first thing you have to do, really. It's not a huge deal if you don't. You just say, you know, you just add the IP address after, you make the changes after. You might have to type no to remove something. Just keep in mind those commands like show run interface loopback 1000, and you'll see what the configuration is on it, and you'll see if you maybe made a mistake. I was about to type the wrong IP address. 100.15.57.86/25. Enter. Boom. Now if I do show IP, oh wait, actually I'll show you this. Show run interface loopback 1000. Look at it. Boom, it's in VRF purple. I can do show IP int brief. Boom, there they are. I thought I said no. Didn't I say no? No interface VLAN 3104. I thought I got rid of that. Show IP int brief. There we go. How did I not get rid of those before? I didn't notice. Was there an error message? There might have been. Whoops. Like that one right there. Maybe I didn't type no. I can actually go back up and look, right? Because this is a command prompt. There's buffers. Oh, yeah, we can go look. We can go see what it is that I typed. Oh, look at this. Silly me. I didn't type a no in there. Guess what? If you don't type no in front of it, it doesn't delete it. It's not a mystery. All right. Show IP int brief. There we go. That's what I wanted to see. Perfect. Perfect. Now here's an interesting thing too that you can do. You can do a show int. Let's see. Can I do it? Do I do it here? Nope, not yet. Show int. Let's see. No, we want show IP. Let's see. No. I'm doing a question mark because I'm looking for a command. I'm looking for the command VRF. Here it is. So I can do show IP int VRF purple if I want to. Brief. Hit enter. Boom. It only shows me the ones in purple. Look what happens if I just do show IP int brief. I see the management interface, which is in the default VRF. Guess what? That means you can, you created a VRF called gold. You type gold in there. Oh, there are no IP addresses in gold yet, right? We're going to create those. So now, Ethernet 1 on switch 11, we're going to, VRF blue, we're going to put it into VRF blue, okay? We're going to configure that part of the diagram. So this is all on switch 11. So we're in CompT already. We're going to go interface, Ethernet 1, no, switch port. Literally all I got to type is node SW. VRF, I do have to type out the full word. Actually, I can type the capital letter B, hit tab, boom, it types it out for me. Right? Some things you can do that too. There are times when you're not going to be able to do that. So 0.1/31. There we go. That interface is now in there. Now I'm going to create an SVI on switch 11 VRF interface. Now check this out. This is why you got to do that right here. VLAN 10 is on port channel 24. We got to create this SVI because you need an SVI to put an IP address on it, a switched virtual interface. We need to put that IP address on that switch virtual interface. So I'm going to walk you through doing that. All right. Interface, VLAN 10. Boom, just created the SVI. That was it. VRF blue, IP address 75.46.95.222/24. Boom, done. Now I'm going to show IP in brief. There's probably a loopback on here. Yep, that doesn't need to be there, right? No, interface loopback 800 doesn't need to be there. No, interface VLAN 3104. Like I said, those are from the previous configuration I had done. So now we're going to hit this. All right, SVI and switch 10. Gold. So now we're going to gold VRF, right? So we're going back to switch 10. We didn't have to do it in the order we just did it in. We did it in the order that we had kind of the diagram, right? We did switch 10, Switch 11, we're going back to switch 10 to do the rest of the configuration. Could have done all of the switch 10 stuff right from the get-go. Didn't matter. But we didn't. All right. So, interface. VLAN 10. Oh, that's right. I didn't put a picture of this here. So I'm going to actually copy and paste this out and paste it into here in a second once I do it, right? So we're going to do interface VLAN 10 just like we did really on the other one. Now we're going to say no. Oh, wait, we got to do VRF. Yep, don't forget VRF. Yep. VRF gold. Oh, yep, that's right. VRF gold. Now we're going to put an IP address on it of 100. Oops, nope, 75, follow the diagram, 46.95.13/24. Hit enter. So I'm going to copy and paste this out of here, by the way. Hold on 1 second, and we'll be right back. Ta-da! Probably seems as though no time passed at all. Okay, we got that in there. Now, let's see what's next. All right, now we're going to do loopback 1 on switch 10 VRF gold. So here we go. Interface loopback 1. We're going to call it VRF gold. And we're going to do IP address 100.15.67.253/32 this time. Now we do show IP into brief here, and boom, we got a lot more IP addresses, right? A lot more IP addresses. Now we can even do that thing where we say specify VRFs. We can say VRF gold brief, boom, the 2 IP addresses associated with VRF gold. We type VRF purple, make sure we type the thing in here, brief, boom, the 2 interfaces associated with VRF purple. The other interface, the other VRF is default, and that's actually where it exists. I think I can even type in VRF default here, and it will just show me what's there. Well, that's right, there's nothing there. Used to be, according to these slides, but I changed it to management. So this is where that last interface is. Boom, there it is. Perfect. Okay. So now, this is what we built, right? We built it. Now if we do show spanning tree block ports, there's no blocks on 10 anymore. Show spanning tree block ports. Whoa, no blocks on 11, which we kind of knew. The reason is because Ethernet 1 is routed. Now what I'm probably going to ask you guys to do, which I haven't asked yet, is for you to do to change your spanning tree mode to rapid PVST. I haven't done that yet. I will let you know for your labs, because I think we're going to potentially need it. We may run into challenges depending on how the interfaces lay out, and because there's going to be multiple VLANs traversing between the switches, it may confuse the switch because they're all in the same MST instance. So that's just something to be aware of, that may happen. So now if we tried to ping, right, I showed you in class, this doesn't work. It doesn't work. I'm not going to do it here. It won't work. I know it's not going to work. What the hell, I'll do it. I'll do it. All right, from, oops, oh boy, previous, my bad. All right, we'll do it. What the heck? VRF purple. We know it's not going to work. Why? Because I got to change that slide. It's not 57. Loopback 1000. Boom, doesn't work. Why? Because the network's unreachable. Why? Because there's no routes. We talked about this. There's no routes. There are no routes in this VRF. VRF purple doesn't have any routes to get to VRF gold. Has no idea how to get there. Not a clue. Neither does gold know how to get there. Really, blue doesn't know how to get there either. They only know about each other. So we have to add the routes in VRF purple for it to understand how to get to gold. So we're going to set that up. If we do a show IP routes, right? Here I'm showing you, if we show IP route, that's the default VRF. That's it. Now in this case, it shows some routes, and that's what it used to show on yours switch now, but now it doesn't. What it should do now is if you type show IP route VRF management, it looks a lot like what the slide shows. Why? Because again, I moved the management interface into VRF management the other day. Now, if we type VRF purple, as an example, because we want purple to get to gold and we want gold to get to purple, purple only knows about connected routes. He only knows what he's connected to. That's it. That's all purple knows. That's all gold knows. They only know what they're connected to. And what does that mean? That means only the interfaces that are actually on that VRF. So this 75.46.95.0/24 interface is on gold. So is this 100.15.67.253/32. They show up as connected. See this C? Connected. They're connected routes. That's what that means. And it shows you what interface it's connected on. Loopback 1, and this one's connected on VLAN 10 because it's an SVI on the gold VRF. So that's why purple, if we look at what purple, we tried to ping from purple, we tried to ping 100.15.67.253, which is right here on the gold VRF, right? So if we looked at the routes, though, in purple, show IP route VRF purple, it doesn't have a route to 100.15.67.53. It knows how to get to 100.15.57.0. It knows how to get to 192.168.0.0. No idea how to get to that other IP address. We have to tell it how to get there because it's not connected. So we need to send traffic destined for 100.15.67.253 from purple to this address. Yeah, it's on blue. We're trying to get to here. Why do we send it to blue? Because purple is not connected to gold. Purple is connected to blue. I can only send it to blue and only to its connected interface. That's all I can do. This is the connected interface. This IP address and the IP address on this interface on purple are actually in the same network. Right? See 192.168.0.1. Look at this route right here on switch 10. This route right, yeah, right here. 192. This is VRF purple, right? So looking up here, 192.168.0.0/31. .1 is the other IP address in this on Ethernet 1. .1 is on blue right here in this slide. Boom, this should all start to make sense to you. So I have to send this route for this loopback to this VRF in order for it to even get off of the purple VRF. Otherwise it's going to go nowhere and the network will look unreachable. So the same situation exists for gold. In order to get from this loopback, 100.15.67.253 on gold, to get to 100.15.67 network up here, notice it's a network we're going to because it's a /25. This one's a /32. It's really a network also, but a /32 is one IP address. A /25 is a potential 126 IP addresses. So from gold, in order to get off of gold, we have to go to this connected interface, 75.46.95.222. This is a very critical thing to understand. And I emphasized this in class when I went over the slides. This will be a huge thing that many of you will mess up. And what you'll do is you'll put a route from here to try and go directly to purple, and it won't work. And you'll be confused. You're like, well, the loopback's here. I got to route it to there. To route it to there, first you have to route it to the blue VRF. Critical point. So, on switch 10, we've got to create a route. The way you do that is typing IP route VRF, then the VRF name, which is purple, and then the destination network we want to go to, which is 100.15.67.253/32. And don't forget the question mark, the vital question mark. You put the question mark and it kind of tells you what it is that you need to actually type in potentially. Gives you hints. Don't forget that. 192.168.0.1 is the IP address of the next hop router. It actually says it in the over here in help, over here. Address of the next hop router. That's the next hop router, which is the IP address on switch 11, VRF blue. Boom. Took it. Now we're going to create another route. I just hit up arrow. I'm going to delete the words purple. I used the little arrow keys. The little arrow keys move me over to that. I hit the delete key now, and I type gold. Now I go over here, 100.15.67.0. /25, that network that was on the loopback on VRF purple, right? But this guy, I want to go to the next hop address of 75.46.95.222. Boom. Now watch this. So we're going to go back to the picture real quick. Go back to the quick picture real quick. This is what I'm talking about, right? So in order for me to get from this 115.67.0/25, which is up here, 100.15.67.0/25, that's the network ID. It's important to put the network ID. If you put 86 in there /25, it's gonna, I believe it'll just error out on you, and it'll complain that you're using a non-zero IP address. In fact, let's just try that out. I'll show you. Let's type no in front of this command. Notice I just hit up arrow. I arrow keyed all the way over, type no, and hit enter. Boom, quick, right? So now what I'm going to do is I hit up arrow key twice. I'm going to change this 0 to an 86. I'm going to hit enter. Whoa, it says host part of destination prefix must be 0. That sounds similar. So we're going to actually retype the command in, the correct command. I just hit up arrow a couple times to get the correct command in there because I'd already typed it once, right? And boom, it took that. So you're going to get that error. Host part of destination prefix must be 0. That's what it means. You didn't use the network ID. I said this in class. I said it now. All right. So that's what I want to show you. Oh, yeah. So now we type show IP route VRF purple, right? And we look at it. Boom, we created a static route. This is what we created in purple. We said if we want to get to 100.15.67.253/32, which is this loopback address here, that loopback address. If we want to get to that network, right, go to 192.168.0.1. Makes sense. This router, from this router, VRF purple, we hand it off to this router on this IP address and say, you do something with it. Because literally that's what's happening. It doesn't care what you do with it. I'm just throwing it at you. You take it. Do something with it. You do something with it. I don't care anymore. It's not my problem. So we created those routes. And the same thing with gold. Very similar concept with gold. We just created a static route for that loopback that was up on purple, the loopback network, to go to that next hop address on VLAN 10 of 75.46.95.222. Now, I didn't type VLAN 10 when I typed the route in. If you noticed, didn't type that in. It knew it. Why? Because it's a connected network. It says it right here. 75.46.96.0/24 is directly connected on VLAN 10. So when I typed in the route, it said, oh, this is the way you gotta go across VLAN 10 because it's connected. Connected, connected, connected. Very important. Now, it'll let you type in a silly route. I could have typed in something like IP route 100.15.67.0/25. I'm going to use the same route /25, and maybe I would say, and I don't want to do this. This is not what I want to do. I'm going to say VRF gold, right? Because this is VRF gold is what we want. And we're going to say go to 192.168.0.0 because that's the IP address on that purple VRF, and we put that in there. Wait a minute, what it didn't like? Oh, you know what it didn't like? Boom, boom, boom. It didn't like that I put a network on my next hop because I don't need a network on my next hop. It's just an IP address I'm shoving the route to. It just put the wrong, that's not the right route. That's wrong. So if I do show IP route VRF gold, guess what? This wrong route, that's impossible because this next hop router 192.168.0.0 is not connected to VRF gold. Let's go look at that. Previous, let's look at the picture. What I told this VRF gold to do is go to 192.168.0.0, which is actually up here on VRF purple. It can't get there. Guess why? This is in the way. So you have to send it to here. That works. That shows up properly in this routing table over here. The other one doesn't even show up. Why? Because it doesn't have a connected network to 192.168.0.0. So it says, I don't know what the heck you want me to do with this. So if your routes are not showing up in your route table, you typed something wrong. So now we're going to get rid of that route. Oh, it's there though too. I'll show you. It's there. Show run include. I can do this. Show run and then the pipe symbol, which is the up and down line above your enter key. And I'll say include route. Oops, I typed include route. So include route, boom, the route is there. Here's the bad route. Let's get rid of that. Now I can just, copy that out and say no. Or I could hit up arrow where I typed it in and boom, it's gone. Now if I do show run include route, that route, as you can see, is now gone. There are only 3 routes where there were 4. This bad route is now gone from the routing table. Well, it wasn't ever in the routing table, but it's gone from the config. So now we put the routes in. We did a show IP routes. Now if we try and ping, this is interesting. So now I'm actually going to hit the up arrow until I get to my ping. I'm not going to type it in again. So ping from VRF purple 100.15.67.253. We're going to try and ping the source with the source of loopback 1000. So from my loopback 1000, I'm going to try and ping. Well, now I don't get a network unreachable. I just get no response. Because now it knows which way it has to go. It has to go to VRF blue to get to that loopback. But what's the difference? Why is it network unreachable versus that? Yeah, that's what the difference is. It now knows what it needs to do. It's not unreachable. According to that router, it knows how to get there. VRF purple knows how to. But guess what? VRF blue doesn't know. Blue can't route to those destinations. So if we look at VRF blue, show IP route, VRF blue on switch 11, we've thrown the packet to VRF blue, boom, but VRF blue has no 100 dot routes at all. And oh, look at this, by the way, I forgot to enable IP routing. It told me, it tells me, error message right there, boom. It's not even really an error message, it's just telling me. Oh wait, not there, sorry, right down there, there it is. Yeah, so IP routing is not available, so I gotta enable IP routing. Maybe you caught me missing that earlier. Done. That was earlier in the slides, and I forgot that part. This is gonna happen to you too. So you gotta remember that, go back through the slides, make sure what you're doing, do show runs, check your stuff, and you'll figure it out. If it tells you IP routing not enabled, boom, it should click in your head. Oh yeah, he had a slide that said IP routing. That's where it is. So pay attention. Don't just type things in, and you shouldn't be doing that anyway, because really every single one of your labs is different, and it's different from this even. So it's almost like you can't. You have to really think about what you're doing, right? Anyway, so let's put the routes in for blue to understand how to get to those loopbacks, right? We need blue. Blue needs routes to these destinations. Loopback 1000's IP network and loopback 1's network. It needs to know how to get there. So we're going to send traffic for 100.15.67.0/25 from blue to 192.168.0.0. Again, to the next hop, to the next hop, the next connected network router. You don't send it anywhere else, to the next hop, the next IP address, right? So we're going to add those routes very quickly. IP route, VRF blue, 100.15.67.253/32. We route that one to 75.46.95.13. That's the IP address on VRF gold. And then we're going to add a route for, boom, I'm going to hit the up arrow. I'm going to do some erases. /25, and this is going to be, I could have just, I guess, erased that whole thing instead of going past it. 192.6.8.0.0, boom, this should, let's check our ping now. Oh, there's something else missing. What's missing? Let's check this out. Try and ping, oh, I missed something. Okay, this is perfect. This is perfect. What did I miss? I missed something. Let's do a show VRF again on this one. Make sure all of our routing is configured. All right, this is routing. So we've got routing on all this guy, on these guys, right? Let's do show IP route VRF blue on this guy. He's got the routes. Let's verify these routes are correct. So this is actually perfect. I'm so glad this happened. We're gonna look closer at the diagram here, right? So let's make sure these routes are correct. 100.15.67.0/25, which is this guy, right? He's going to go to 192.168.0.0. It's on Ethernet 1. That's perfect. 100.15.67.253, right? This guy goes to 75.46.95.13 on VLAN 10. He knows that's connected too. So this looks good. Show IP int brief. Let's make sure we got all our IP addresses correct on this guy. We do. Let's make sure these are the correct IP addresses on this guy, right? 75.46.95.13. I did that correct. 100, let's see, 192.168.00/31. Yep, that's correct. This is interesting. Let's check that ping out again. Did I type the ping correctly? Ping VRF blue 100.15.67.253 source loopback 1000. Let's check spanning tree. No blocked ports. Troubleshooting the network. This is perfect. I have a perfect idea how we could troubleshoot this. This is actually going to be great because I was thinking about this for your labs. So if I do a show IP int brief on both of these boxes, let's check from purple. Let's make sure that we can connect from purple to blue. That's the first step. So we're going to do show IP int brief VRF. Oh wait, first we do show IP int VRF purple brief. And these are the interfaces on purple, right? So now if we check the interfaces on blue, we see this interface, right? They both say up and up, which is good. That's an important component that we need. So we're going to ping from purple from 192.168.0.0/31 to 192.168.0.1. We should be able to do that from VRF purple. This should just work. So if we ping VRF purple, we're going to say 192, it's ping from VRF purple. That's what that means. 192.168.0.1. What actually will happen is it will use the closest connected interface as its IP address. It actually did use 192.168.0.0. We can specify that though if we want to. We just say source 192.168.0.0. Worked. So I'm totally connected to VRF blue. Okay, great. That's cool. So now we're going to try from VRF blue to ping to VRF gold. So those IP addresses are, check those, we'll check those, right? And we have a picture of one right here in front of us. But, all right, VRF gold has this IP address on it, right? So, and blue has 222. So we're going to try and ping from 222 to 13 on VRF blue. So it's going to try and ping 75.46.95.13. So we're trying to ping switch 10, which is on VRF gold, right? We're going to we'll put in this source even though we don't really need to do it. So that works. That means these VRFs are connected. Something else is wrong, right? We check the VRF again. So blue has Ethernet 1, 10, and routing enabled on switch 11. So now actually, let's see from blue, I should theoretically be able to ping either one of those loopbacks at this moment. So let's check our routes actually first in VRF blue. We typed some in, but let's see, we seem to have those routes in place. So let's try and ping these loopbacks from VRF blue. Because I should be able to. I put them in here. All right, I can ping 67.253, which is gold. And it did use, I can source it from the interface that's connected to both gold and blue, right? They share an interface. They share a network between each other. It's this 75.46.95.0/24 network, because this IP address on this guy, it doesn't show up here, but is 222, right? .222. So these share a network. So from VRF blue, I should, right, be able to ping this loopback since I have the route, the correct route for it. Even though I'm not connected, this makes total sense because I know that I got to go here, and he already knows how to get there, right? And this router already knows how to get back to this network so that it can get to that interface. So that actually should work. That makes total sense. So now what I'm going to do is ping northbound, let's call it, to VRF purple. So let's do that, and we'll source it from our 192.168.0.1 interface, right? So we're going to ping this .86 guy, sourced it from 192.168.0.1 interface because that's what we have. Oh, interesting. Why does that say that? So let's check this out. So this one says destination network unreachable. 67.86. First, let's check on switch 10. Show IP int brief. 100. Aha. Therein lies the mistake. So the reason I said that was because this error message to me, destination net unreachable, is actually a response from VRF 10. I'm on the VRF purple on 10. I'm on 11 right now, right here. This is 11. He's doing that ping. This is switch 11 doing the ping to switch 10. I actually know that this destination net unreachable means switch 10, VRF purple, sent that message back to VRF blue saying, hey, I can't get to that network. I don't know what that network is. Right? So I messed up. I put the wrong IP address. Now that could have been two different things, right? The route in here could have been wrong, right? I could have had the wrong route, but we would have seen a no route to network message, right? But I have the correct route here, 100.15.67.0/25. That was correct. So I knew what that was. So now that IP address is wrong on switch 10. So I'm going to change that. And maybe you saw me do that when you saw me typing all this in. So interface LO1000. Now don't forget what's going to happen here when I change this IP address, okay? If I change it just like this, and I say IP address 100.15.67.86/25, and I hit enter, boom, that just worked. But the reason it didn't complain, actually, this is interesting, it is already in VRF purple. All it did was change the IP address. Now, first of all, this ping will work, right? That worked. And now the ping should work from the entire ping should work now. From loopback to loopback, we're going to go here. Here's the loopback to loopback ping. We're going to do it right now. That should work. Worked. So that's actually was kind of neat because it gave me an opportunity to show you how to troubleshoot something. And this is something I wanted to show you anyway, was that if you have your routes incorrect or something wrong, right, and you try and ping from loopback to loopback, you're going to have a problem. So check to make sure you can ping from this VRF to that VRF on that interface first. Does that work? Then I'm connected. Then ping from this VRF to that VRF. Can I ping that? It worked. Okay, good. If that works, then something else is weird. Theoretically, like I said, from VRF Blue, I should be able to ping these loopbacks. Not a problem because I'm connected to these networks, and if I put the routes in correctly, it should just work. So, there we go. That was neat. I'm glad that happened. So now we're going to ping from VRF Gold loopback 1 to 67.86. That should just work because once it works one way, it'll work the other way. Good to go.